Wait, hold up, is it? Man, that'd take a while. And this is how you come down. Got a new email from the backyard. The old backyard. And a bunch of other ones, but you got one here that really hits home for me. I saw the title of it when I saved my phone and I started reading it. I'm like, oh, holy shit, here we go. So I'm gonna get to it right off the bat and share this email and more. Now listen to this. My story I want to share. Hi Steve, hope this finds you and can help your viewers on their amazing journey. Took a while to write this, even longer to send, since my experiences are petty. About me, Francois, 43, moved to Whistler, BC at the age of 19. Since I've been working as a fly fishing guide / snowcat operator and many other jobs outside and travel lots. Now I reside in Prince Rupert, BC and work as a steelhead guide on the Nass River in the fall. I work as a cat operator for a cat skiing biz and run my own ocean charter in summer. Right on, man, living the dream. My work settings allows me to do a lot of watching / observing, and my sixth sense is quite high, which enables me sometimes to feel energies / entities surrounding me. I think my journey started in '96 where a bunch of us played a Ouija board. Oh, what a mistake that was. No doubt. We may have opened something that changed us forever after. Within a year, 2 schizophrenic friends, 1 suicide attempt, lots of weirdness following me. No shit. Yeah, those things are creepy as F. I tried one of those when I was about 20 years old, scared the shit out of me, never went near one ever again, never will. I'm doing lots of spiritual work to cast off my entity when I feel pressure, and can say I feel like it is under control now, but sadly the other world is quite real, and some entities use the weak souls to thrive. Yeah, it's creepy. The Sabe, always been fascinated with it. A couple of first accounts happened in Whistler / Squamish corridor in my young years. Here we go, the stomping grounds, and I've taken you all there numerous times. Lower Lillooet Hot Springs. Yeah, I got lots of stories from down there. 2001-02, partying with friends, classic scream from the valley across / we replied. This went on for a bit, and we all thought it was some crazies partying around. Nothing followed us, but heard stories when I worked at the old Spud Valley store in Pemberton, a few days after from the same area. Heard of many sightings in the First Nation Darcy and along the Birkenhead River, where I felt being watched more than once. Some serious pressure in the Cheakamus Canyon, above the footbridge along the cliff bands. Lived on the river and even caught pics of tracks nearby. 2013, deleted from Facebook? ? Bipedal shadow crossing the highway near Daisy Lake area just before the falls. 2 cars ahead of me. Fast forward to the last couple of years since I started watching your videos, and my quest for knowledge has been really interesting. Heard stories of screams in Prince Rupert, stories from First Nations in Hartley Bay, and so much more. I would say my craziest episode happened first week of April on the lower Skeena River while camping on the Cassix boat ramp. Camping at the Cassix boat ramp. 1 a.m. or so. Second night of the same spot. -3, snowing lightly. Camping in a winter MEC tent about 6 feet from the bed of my truck at the base of a giant spruce. Something was screwing around in the truck bed, open, and I could hear stuff being moved around. All was so quiet. I felt so vulnerable that I waited a bit and made some noise, and all was gone. I asked whatever it was to leave me alone. Waited, then ventured out for a piss and to check if a bear took my stuff, checked for prints in the snow, and couldn't see any prints anywhere. A small Rubbermaid was definitely moved sideways in my truck box. Went back to bed, only to be awakened by something touching my toe through the tent. I felt it. Imagine your big toe touching the tent wall and suddenly being pushed. I freaked out and got mad, told them to F off. No more sounds after. Moved camp the morning after, LOL. Yeah, no doubt. The month after, I was fortunate to have a fast encounter at about 250 yards walking around the lower Mamquam River in Squamish with friends. My friend and I both saw it and looked at each other. Did you see that? We both knew. It just crossed the trail in thick bushes, all black, probably juvenile, 7 feet tops. The most recent being a fallen treetop while mushroom picking on the upper Skeena. Flat, calm day, no wind. 250-year-old cottonwood top just fell 100 feet from us. I got mad at them again. Now that I'm a knower, I'm slowly making sense of a lot more that I could attribute to a savvy in my surroundings that I think may even have a new buddy on my favorite fishing hole nearby. Had a few things happen, like zapped and needed to crap instantly on opening day. LOL. No, it makes sense, LOL. I had sudden sweats just prior. Went back to the same spot a few weeks later and swear I could see it across the stream through the bushes. Finished my pass, crossed, and went to get a closer look, and the dark figure was gone from that spot. I reckon the shadow was a good 9 feet from the ground. I felt his presence, even told out loud, I see you. It never moved, but now that you know what you are looking for, it's much easier to spot. With a 3-year-old kid now, I had lots of time during COVID to teach the little one new tricks. I made sure my little girl was exposed to all our wonders, also to believe in what we can't always see. She knows what a sabe is and can even cast a fly rod. We even learned a bit of sign language. Now that I'm a parent, I want to make sure she gets as much knowledge as possible, and she won't be scared when she sees the real world as it should be. On an end note to this rather long message, I thank you for offering a place for us to share and really hope we get to meet on the water. The invite is here. Bring your spay rod. We have to look after each other. Cheers, Frank. Francois Blanchet. Please say my name. You got her, buddy. I'm sure we probably crossed paths at one point or a few over the years, without a doubt. What can I add to that? One thing for you on a personal note, I had a guy email me from up around the Skeena, a couple years ago, and he was camping solo, and he didn't want me to share his story publicly and all the details, but I will tell you what this person saw. He said it walked across in front of his truck with attitude, and he said the back was higher than the hood of his truck, and it looked hyena wolf-ish. Weird shit, but this guy was absolutely sincere, upset, and he saw it, and he just wanted to send it to me, and he didn't need any attention, whatever. Obviously, he's not going to get any attention because I'm not sharing any details, but just for you, just so you know, that has been reported from where you were working right now, right? Now, the Mamquam, Whistler, Lillooet, Pemberton, Darcy, if I had 25 cents for every sighting I had, and every person I spoke to firsthand, just for you, and a side note, the main largest slide off the face of Mount Currie, numerous sightings there. When you cross the Lillooet River Bridge leaving Pemberton, and there's the Dyke Road on the left, on the southeast side of the river. I met a guy who lived way up that road and lived in that one house in Mackenzie Basin. Bruce, he lived there. He was coming home from having 2 beers at the Pemberton Hotel one night, driving down that, when you used to be able to drive down the Dyke Road to get to that house. And just in that hardwood patch, 400 yards from the pavement, he said he saw what he thought was a native guy from some lost tribe or something, was the first thing that came to his head, walked from the riverside into his headlights across the Dyke Road and stood there beside the poplars on the right. And he said he drove right up beside it, rolled his windows down, started speaking to him, hey, are you okay? And then he realized this dude's eyeballs were glowing, and he thought it was reflecting in the headlights, but I think we all know the difference now, right? And he said the being had charcoal gray hair from head to toe, and he's probably about 8 feet tall. So there you go. You're familiar with that spot too, right? And then obviously there's been gazillions of sightings crossing the road. Daisy Lake's a hot spot. I've gone hunting around there, been creeped out a few places. A friend of mine used to live at that community just past Daisy Lake, and he said there's a spot where everybody goes for a walk towards the lake. There's a certain spot by some spillover or something, and he said that every time they go down there, the dogs freak out and they feel like they're being stared at every time they go through there. Anyway, there you go, the Mamquam. Lots had a logger friend of mine, heard loud whistles in the canyon. It's endless. It's absolutely endless, and so much activity. Squamish, Whistler, Pemberton, Darcy, to Lillooet, down the Lillooet River. Oh, when you went to the hot springs, had another guy email me, said they went down to the same hot springs, and there was a gray, hair-covered upright being at the hot springs looking at him, walked off into the timber. And there was a girl who's cutting hair across from a petro can in Pemberton. Native girl, her boyfriend was riding his dirt bike down there past the hot springs, and his dirt bike crapped out on a Friday evening, and he's walking back up the road, and he looked across the Narrows, the river there, and he said there was 3 of them standing there looking at him, and he got a picture of him on his cell phone, and my farrier in Pemberton told me, he was originally one that told me about that, and he saw the photo, and he said they definitely aren't humans, that's for sure. And I never did try to track him down. A girlfriend of mine, my buddy's wife, that girl cut her hair, and she mentioned it to her. She said, oh yeah, I think he's still got the photos on his phone. I don't know why, I just never got around to it. I'm sure he does still have the photos somewhere. Maybe he's even listening right now. Or our buddies in Mount Currie. Maybe you might know him. Maybe bug him for us and see if he wants to share that photo. If he still has it, see if he wants to share the photo. I don't know his name, but I'm sure you guys do. And see if he wants to share the photos with us and get a hold of them, because I'm sure a bunch of the people here want to hear about that. But anyway, that always gets me going when I hear about stuff going on. At all those places for you guys here now, there's one video intro or outro, whatever, which one I made, where the drone's flying up, and I got my fishing rod and the tripod and walking across the creek. Well, that is the Squamish Valley. That is the river, and that is right near where this emailer sent in some experiences, all around there, right? Anyway, there you go. Thanks for sending that in, man, and thank God you're teaching your children the truth about our reality and our real world. Please, please, everybody, teach your children the truth. Teach them the truth about what people are seeing, so they have at least a bit of a heads up. and also teach them about the absolute truth, what's going on the planet today all around us. Just teach your kids with honesty, right? Now, next, mark this one as red. You can use my name, Jack Hartz from Philadelphia, PA. Hey everyone, I sent my encounter before, 5 minutes outside of Philly, in the John Hines Natural Reserve, where me and my cousin were listening to what we thought were kids down at the creek, but we couldn't understand what they were talking about. I threw a pebble, and right next to us, a growling, grunt, breathing breath thing about 3 feet off the trail in the pitch black scared us. The sound vibrated my chest and made all my hair stand up like I got shocked by an electrical outlet. Now, I'm just trying to convey a thought that just popped up in my mind out of nowhere while watching a missing 411 Bigfoot class. What if the reason they were finding out about an 8-foot tall man being buried the traditional way, cremated in the traditional coverings, was because the tall, hairy man was a Native American? In fact, a few generations before that time period, was the only Native American. Then the Spanish, white man, barbarians from Netherlands. Maybe the word got around quick and the people just showed up in droves. Now, with the cannons and gunpowder weapons, we were more powerful, more intimidating, and more devastating than before weapons. They killed lots of Sabe, and the Sabe never knew about this type of warfare. We wiped some out. Maybe somehow half Sabe, half Native American Indians were being born. These are the Native Americans that we all know of nowadays, and I highly respect them. And I feel bad about how they all got effed by our governments. Continue to get screwed as we speak. And the reason we don't hear about it is to cover up the undesirable actions of warfare, so these times of our history didn't get put in the history books. We know history is written by the victors. Well, maybe I'm way off. Just trying to think outside that cubicle we all live in. Something I wonder about is if we all have abilities that have been forgotten, bred out or suppressed, is when we did lose these abilities, and how utterly sad it is to find that we might not be free at all. We are in something worse than being in prison. We're all in our own prison of the mind. The mindset is that we are free, except we are not. But the invisible bars of our spirit, body, and minds are starting to reveal, and then after we realize that there are bars keeping us in prison, we can start to figure out a way out. This reminds me of a video, one of the saddest things I've ever seen, a video of a giraffe in a shitty zoo, indoors trying to get the leaves off this little tree. Problem is the giraffe is trying to get leaves off a tree that was painted on the wall of the stall it was in. So sad, and a good metaphor for the thought about the predicament we are all in that I'm trying to convey. Well, thanks again, Steve, for reading this and for reading my first email, Jack Hartz. Jack, there's a shit pile of people that can relate to what you're saying, man. A shit pile without a doubt, including myself. All we can do is keep speaking openly and honestly, right? Keep informing the people of honesty and giving the people the voice. As shit's going sideways here in Canada, Stan, big time. And everywhere else, it seems. Hi, Steve. My name's Chris Wilcox. Feel free to read all this information publicly, as everyone should be aware of these beings. I have many stories about encounters that I've had in the past, and we'll share them all eventually with the people. But for today, I wish to discuss the most life-changing and scary. I'm finally writing to you because of your desire to see a tree that was dismembered and destroyed by a Sabe, LOL. I laugh at it now because it scares the shit out of me. I will attach links and photos of my entire 6-hour ordeal, including pics of this monster tree. This is sort of a mid-sized to long story, so I hope you can fit it in somewhere. Oh, you're in here. I know you shake your head sometimes and laugh about the length of stories, but I will try to make it as short as I can and tell only the most significant parts of the story. Actually, guys, I don't complain about too long of stories. I just can't, once I get going and read 2 or 3 emails and eat up some time here, and then at my tail end I come across a book. It's like, oh shit, can't read that one right now. Hopefully I'll start tomorrow with it or whatever, right? So don't be discouraged about a long story is what I'm saying. to everybody. I really appreciate having a platform to tell my story, and I hope that the people can use my ordeal to help them in the future with some more puzzle pieces revealed here. I've been listening to you for many years and have gathered so much information from your readings. The people's stories have really made me understand these beings are much better. After my encounter, I didn't go in the woods for exactly 1 year to the day and decided to man up and just go back to the same location on the same day the following year because I couldn't take the woods out of my life. Well, on to my story. I'm a 59-year-old military vet of the Gulf War and was raised in the northern woods of Vermont in a place known as Northeast Kingdom, or NEK. I fished and hunted and spent the majority of my informative years in the forest. I've generally heard every scream, grunt, growl, and forest noise that most North American animals make. I was stationed at Fort Lewis, Washington. I spent many days in your neck of the woods in Lower BC on joint military exercises headquartered in Chilliwack. No shit. With operations occurring on the Fraser River and Harrison Lake. We had many encounters with all sorts of beings, human, animal, and other that I know today were Sabe. Again, stories for another time. But having hunted and fished both the east and west of this magnificent country, I can attest to the fact that I'm familiar with most animal noises that are heard in the woods. So, my most recent encounter with Sabe was on June 8th, 2021, in a forested reservoir in western New Jersey known as Round Valley Reservoir. I know most people think of Jersey as a concrete jungle, but in all reality, western and southern New Jersey is a very forested and very rural area. Now, trout season opens in April, and this 170-foot deep reservoir holds the biggest brown trout in the state. So I was excited to head out to the only wilderness camping area in New Jersey and catch me some brownies. The lake is large, and because of its status as a reservoir, it's surrounded by a fence, and access to its campground and fishing areas was gated by the state. Fishing license, camping registration, and the like necessary to camp. The 2,600 acres of wilderness that surrounded this lake had a camping area of 80-plus sites of no-frills camping with a centralized water pump and restroom at the far end of it. The entire area was only accessible by a grueling 4 to 5 mile hike or by rowing your boat across a 2-plus mile long lake. I had a 12-foot hybrid canoe capable of long-term outdoor camping, so I packed up my things and headed out. The day started stormy with high winds and lightning during most of the day. That sucks on the water. I told my wife I was going to be gone for roughly 3 days, not to worry if the storm was too bad. I'd cancel and try again the next day. During June, the sun sets around 8:30 p.m. Eastern, so I knew I might have an opportunity at the end of the day to get in there and get set up. And sure enough, by 6-ish or so, the skies had cleared, and I packed up and started my journey across the lake. It was a beautiful, nearly calm evening, and I was feeling lucky to get across this lake in nearly perfect conditions. I'm sure, Steve, that you know that after storms, it's some of the calmest, most beautiful times, and this night was no exception. No wind and a beautiful sunset. Pics included to show you how calm it was. I didn't realize I was already being stalked and watched as I made my way to my lakeside campsite. I would quickly learn that things were going to go sideways. With so much rain, I needed to find campfire wood immediately before it got too dark. So I grabbed my gloves and started to search the other sites for leftover wood. I found a bit, and by 7:45-ish, I began to erect my tent and get the wood situated. In hindsight, my banging the stakes into the ground and chopping wood might have been what started this off. I'm not sure. The first thing that happened was 10 minutes into my tent erecting experience. I was hammering in a tent peg, and a large tree creaked and cracked and fell over, shattering a very peaceful evening thus far. My spider and military senses kicked in, and I immediately took a range and bearings of the noise. I figured it was about 200 yards away in the deep forest. It's pretty dark now, and at first, it really did not alarm me too much. I knew the trees had come down in the forest, and with all the rain, it was very possible that the root ball of this tree just gave way. So, other than feeling great for hearing my first tree ever come down in the woods, I wasn't too alarmed. I laughed at the fact of how many days in the woods I spent without hearing a natural fall. I kept banging my stakes into the ground for my tent and cutting some wet wood, and little did I know that it would be the last 10 minutes of peace I would have until I passed out in the early morning from exhaustion. Ugh. 10 minutes went by until the next event. I was cutting wood and I heard what I can only say now was an angry Sabe ripping down a huge tree. Imagine if you would, if you were the Sabe. You have extreme strength and pick a 24-inch tree to rip down to scare off a stranger who's trespassing in your area, for whatever reason. You know the tree isn't going to come down easily, but you see that it's a bit compromised on one side and you feel you can pull it over. So you reach up high, gaining leverage, and yank and pull in the downhill direction to pull it down. The first pull only shatters some of the wood trunk and the tree holds. You know you broke some of the tree trunk off, so you double down with your strength on the second pull. It cracks and shatters some more, but holds yet again. You know that you can pull it down, so on the third attempt you pull with all your might, and finally the tree gives way, cracking and shattering as it falls, making a huge noise as it is pulled down. It takes the limbs of other trees with it and snaps off at a height of 4 to 5 feet above the ground. It makes such a noise that as a Sabe, you're very pleased with yourself and most likely smile. You think to yourself, this is going to be a fun evening. Now back to my reality. I hear the 3 attempts at pulling this tree over, and with each pull, every hair in my body stands up and a feeling of dread overcomes me. The dread was a wave that washed over me. My military training kicked in. I attempted to shake it off. I crouched down, looked at my Garmin watch, and immediately got a bearing of 33 degrees, and I figured about 150 yards away. My peaceful night ended here. And at that point, all that could be heard in the woods was the raindrops falling onto the ground out of the canopy of the forest. And for what seemed like forever, I just froze there using all my senses to try to figure out what the F was going on. This Sabe would eventually speak to me. I have this in audio recording, and it is haunting. My entire night's events will be recorded, and although I would never actually see this creature, the evidence would convince me beyond a shadow of a doubt these creatures are intelligent and don't wish to harm you in most cases. I would be thankful for that. I didn't want this experience, nor did I seek it. I'd listened to many stories from your channel and realized this. So my balls had grown way larger than normal, hoping this wouldn't be the one who would make me disappear. The events now didn't stop. For the next 6 hours, this being would circle my campsite, throw a huge boulder into the water to continue to scare me. And he would tell me to leave. Most people ask me, why the hell didn't you get out of there? And I tell you now, the reservoir has been called the Bermuda Triangle of New Jersey, and over 26 people have drowned there since '71. What? 6 of them have never been found? I would have to row across a 2-mile dark lake at night or hike an impossible 5 to 6 miles out to leave this area, and had me trapped and made my night miserable and haunting, and he knew it. I talked to him, screamed at him at times when he broke huge tree limbs near me. I offered some food to make him feel less threatening and tried to calm my nerves. I had no weapon minus a huge outdoor knife and was totally at his mercy. I set up lights in the perimeter and hunkered down, building a small fire and a solo stove to soothe me as much as possible. Steve, I tell you now, this being knew when I shut off the cameras. It knew when I started to relax a bit. When I let my guard down, it quickly reminded me of his presence by crushing the undergrowth around my campsite, making a huge noise. All of the adrenaline and endorphins in my body finally gave out at 3 a.m. and I succumbed to whatever fate he had for me. It's freaking crazy, man. This is freaking intense. Let me read that one previous part one more time, you guys. Steve, I tell you now, this being knew when I shut off the cameras. Take note of that point. 2.5 hours later, I woke up. The morning began to give me some comfort. I still felt watched in a way, and I realized when I woke up to actually check the time on my Garmin watch that it was dead. Stone cold dead. It was a solar-powered, battery-operated watch that normally would last 6 to 10 days in the backwoods. I shook my head, put it on the brick charger I had with me, and to get it charged up for the trip out. I was mentally and physically exhausted. I had not eaten in many hours, so I took the opportunity to fry up some bacon and recount my story on tape. I then quickly packed up and got the hell out of there, which now brings me to the next part of the story, the investigation. My brother, although a Democrat, was the most level-headed science guy I knew. Older than me by 6 years, he at least had an open mind. I recounted these events to him, and he paused, took a deep breath, and said, "Chris, you need to go back and find that tree. Only then will you know for sure." It would prove to be the most compelling bit of evidence next to the voice on tape that would send me over the edge in knowing these beings existed. When you see the pics, they just aren't right. On a calm night with no wind, there was no way that tree would have come down. Also, around 14 feet up the trunk, I found what looked like abrasion marks, where his hands were placed as he pulled this tree over. You can also see these light areas in the pictures. I posted this story to YouTube, and many things that were found in the audio portion of the recording, the voices, more wood knocks, and quiet of the woods, all very evident in the recorded portion of the video. When I grew enough balls to go back a week later, in the middle of the day, I armed a bit better, I'd find this tree. I'll attach pics of what I think you'd like to see from this adventure with the Sabe. Steve hopes this information proves a few things. First, most Sabe don't wish to actually harm you in most cases. Also, they are tremendously strong, as the tree pics show. They are also masters of disguise and camouflage, that they are super intelligent and have knowledge of voice, as can be heard in the recording. And although this is nothing new, it just verifies it once again. I checked the internet out for sightings in this area and got back some additional corroborating information. My neighbor also knows some people who have been flushed out of that region by a huge something that terrified them. I know the story is a bit long and wordy, but I hope it tells a story that helps people. I'll leave the link to the audio voices and the story as told from my perspective below. Please include in comments if you desire. Thanks again, Steve, for giving us a place to recount these terrifying events. And I'll soon send you a list of the gathered behaviors of a wilderness being. Please feel free to contact me if you'd like to hear more details, and I'll write again soon to tell you my other encounters. Godspeed, and stay safe out there. Chris Wilcox. All right, man. Yeah, that's no rotten tree. Yikes. Definitely not a rotten tree. That would have been a shitty experience, right? I'm not sure if you said that you look for these beings intentionally or not now. I don't think you mentioned it, but so much going on. I gotta save these images to make sure I put them in this video and show you guys. Be back 1 second. You know, it's funny, one thing to be mentioned about the strength of these damn beings, or whatever strength it is, or however they pull the shit off. I mean, you gotta think about it, man. I don't know how many times they've been reported to have an elk over the shoulder by the muzzle of the head, running with it like nothing. Imagine? It's all we can do to roll one over when it's laying there dead at your feet by yourself. It's all you can do. Crazy, man. That's for me. That's pretty cool to see the photograph of the broken tree included, because not many people go looking for the broken trees, right? And I think I asked about that a while ago. Does anybody ever go back and look for those big trees they heard pulled over? Somebody just did and shared it. I'll go check out that audio and everything too when I get back in. There's no internet here, although I don't know how text came through again. Thanks again, man. Send me what you got. If you got shit to help the people, you send it, all right? Be safe out there. Here's another one titled Footprints Just Stopping. Here's a quick comment about the Sabe footprints just disappearing at some point. Usually I tend to think that the more I hear the same thing in people's stories, the more likely it is that it is true. But every now and then, you hear a unique story and explains something that has been baffling you. I read this one story about a hiker who is hiking down the trail and sees this large footprints crossing the trail, and so he decides to follow them. He goes a short distance and the footprints just stop. This guy either had some unique insight or he had a lot of time on his hands, and he decided to go back and discover where the footprints came from. So he follows the footprint trail back and crosses the original trail. At a significant distance later, the footprints continue, but they are facing 180 degrees in the opposite direction. So here's the explanation. Sabby's coming up the trail in the opposite direction as a human, and he gets to the point where he knows he wants to turn, but instead of just turning left down the trail and somebody might follow him, he goes the opposite direction. He turns right instead of left. He walks a bit and stops. Then he retraces his steps in reverse past the original trail and a good distance beyond it, and then just turns around because he knows that everybody who followed the original trail, even if they figured it out, he'd be long gone. You never know. I don't know, you never know. But unfortunately, with a handful of documented incidents of footprints disappearing in open snow, it doesn't fit in those incidents. But you never know. Here comes Crazy Dog. Thanks for that email, man. What are you doing? Huh? Let's see if I can get a hold of this thing and show you guys the size of this frickin' elephant. Come here, come here. Come here. Oh, look at this thing now. Look at it. You're huge. You're huge, right? Monstrous. Eating, growing machine. Too big for the front seat of the truck now. It's nuts. Okay, one more I gotta get going. Got a lot of stuff to prepare for coming up. Thank you /information. In your earlier videos, you talked about walking into an area accessed by non-ordinary circumstances. Keep your head down, turn around, and follow your steps back until things return to normal. Excuse me. I preached this very thing to my son and daughter, and your advice, I believe, saved their lives. Thank God. Northeastern corner of Washington State, 13 miles from the Canadian border. My son and daughter decided to go on a walk down by the river. 1.5 miles from home, they walk into a small clearing near a narrow spot in the river. As they got into the center of this clearing, the light of day dimmed. All natural sounds stopped. Even the river sounds became muted. Then, as if in unison, they both heard their mother calling to them from across the river. All the alarm bells went off in my son's gut. He looks at his sister and says, "This is all wrong. We have to get out of here." Fortunately, I talked to my son about this scenario less than 2 days prior after hearing one of your warnings. No way. So my son grabbed his sister's hand, did a 180-degree turn, retraced her steps for 75 yards. Once they cleared this threshold, everything returned to normal. The daylight returned, animal sounds returned, and the river became crisp and roaring again. So again, thank you. I'm a collector of curious facts. I'm no scientist or degreed person, just an observer of people, places, and events. To answer the big question about Sabe, why withhold info about them? Their existence and experiential knowledge opens doors, if not windows, to our own reality and abilities we all possess, yet lay dormant as those in control want. The sole aim of governance is expansion and control. If we truly knew who we are, their gig would be up. Quote, "We're spiritual beings having a physical experience and a biological avatar," end quote. I won't inundate you with 60 pages of scientific peer-reviewed papers. Instead, here's the Cliff Notes version, and at the end, we'll give you source info to all who want to fact check. Number 1, our pineal gland is a piezoelectric transducer with sending and receiving abilities. The transducer converts one form of energy into another: sound, pictures, and feelings. In my opinion, the Sabe can send energy, sound, or etheric energy to manipulate our pineal gland for mind speak, to send feelings of dread or calm, or to even manipulate our vision. I am a tree stump. Number 2, our DNA has spring-like abilities. When it contracts, then expands. It releases low-energy photons. Now, in complete darkness in the woods, you have a human whose DNA is releasing millions of low-energy photons. Add to that a Sabe whose eyes are hypersensitive and can spot a single photon, there would be no hiding. Number 3, doorways to other realms of existence do exist. Every night when we sleep, we open one, mostly on an unconscious level. However, doors can also be opened through intention. Ouija boards, though not recommended. Ouija boards, though not recommended. Fasting, thirst, sickness, hallucinogens, meditation, these all open up doorways. On a side note, if we can go out, other things can get in. If we can open with our feeble abilities, imagine what a fully knowledgeable Sabe could do. No shit, and I think we're seeing that nonstop and hearing about it nonstop, right? Number 4, doorways can't be transient due to openings occurring due to electron migration, i.e., someone goes missing, then there is a horrible storm. Ley lines intersecting with a transient intrusion through the ionosphere, i.e., northern lights, quartz crystal in boulder fields or in mountain ranges susceptible to microquakes releasing energy. On a side note, I speculate that landing vehicles off of world origin could create temporary whirlpools in the boundary between realms, allowing people to walk in or others to walk out. Lastly, I'd like to say there is supposed to be a yellow fogged world next to ours. Sulfur? Why do they dig through garbage? Possibly it's the first food source they encounter after an accidental trip. Why do they kill dogs? Could it be their long-standing feud with another cryptid? Some people have reported radiation. Could this be where they came from, where they were being held, or a byproduct of traveling through a doorway? Many types of cancer are related to specific types of radiation. Goodwill, good hunting, carp diem. There's quite the email. That's quite the brain challenger, right? And that's got my wheels spinning. And I'm sure a bunch of other people's brains spinning. You've done a lot of thinking and looking, haven't you? Good for you. That's a lot there. But anyway, I got to get going. I got stuff I got to get doing so I can get out of here. And I'll tell you what, right now I'm having a little bit of apprehension about the thought of being in a jungle where there are wild tigers running around and cobras. We'll see how this goes. I'll share more later on. Wow. All right, I'm gonna get in. I have to try to find the recording in the guy's channel on YouTube, see what's up, and then get this out and get moving along. I'm gonna bite my lip today. I've been doing a little too much ranting lately, maybe, possibly, but I'll tell you what, there's one theme for sure that's not only online, but in our communities everywhere, is the amount of displeased people right now around the planet. It's really getting a little out of control, don't you think? And that's not made up. That's fact. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. I'll bite my lip there. But anyway, keep emailing me things that help the people, all right, you guys? Keep emailing me information and knowledge that helps the people from the people, okay? But anyway, I'll be back again shortly with a lot more voices to be heard. I got so many that need to be heard. So there. Be safe. All right. Going back to old school, and I'm putting on this yarn on a hook that came with the antique steelhead reel from our friend in Quesnel. Here we go. Sent to me. fingers. You put on the old school old boys standard tie up, and there you go. Look what happens. How cool is that?